It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Texas Tech Director of Sports Nutrition, Dayna McCutchin. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in college athletics?
Well, I started out private practice, so I honestly didn't know that I wanted to end up in college athletics. But through my original position in private practice, I started to work with athletes and just fell in love with the competitive aspect of it, and just eventually kind of led me down the road to end up full-time in sports.
What was it like working in private practice and then going obviously into college athletics?
It's night and day, going from kind of a normal hours to kind of not normal hours so much, and just the time and workload and demands and volume of what I did increased tenfold. But again, fell in love with it and really felt like that's kind of where I needed to be and where I was called to be.
What was it like, obviously, when you were named the Texas Tech first sports dietitian since 2013?
It was a Texas Tech is my alma mater, and where I went to school and did my undergrad and my dietetic internship in grad school all at Tech. So I was very passionate. I grew up around the area as well, so very passionate about my alma mater. So it was kind of just a dream come true, honestly, to have the privilege and opportunity to be the first dietitian on staff. And it was just a good fit, and I'm honored to get to do what I'm honored to do what I do every day.
What is it like, obviously, getting to work at your alma mater?
It's just a privilege and, like I said, a dream come true. It's very rewarding, and obviously I'm very passionate and very take what we do very personal and sincerely. I just feel like I have the opportunity to give back each and every day.
How is it like overseeing 17 sports for obviously sports nutrition?
It's challenging. We have an incredible staff and support system from our administration and coaching and other support staff. So I can't say enough about how much our staff does, because it's very challenging, and time demands are high. And so having a good staff and support system are how we can get done what we need to each and every day.
What's a typical day in the life of a sports nutritionist?
So that's probably going to look different in each institution. At Texas Tech, we get to work, between 5 and 6 a.m. And, just when our day ends, it kind of just depends on the sports and whether you're in season, off season, the time of year. But right now, it's not untypical to, have 12, 13, 14-hour days. And often when we get home, we continue to sometimes have responsibilities and stuff that we have to finish once we're home. So very long hours, very few holidays, don't get many days off, honestly. But that's, again, just that's not untypical. That's just working in college sports.
Of course, what is it like balancing, obviously, working in college sports and obviously having a family life?
That's probably the number one most challenging part, in my opinion, of anyone working in college athletics, but specifically mommies, women working in college athletics, is trying to find work-life balance. So for me, having a good partner, my husband's very supportive of what I do, and without him and his ability to be able to juggle and help me be able to work in the place that I work, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I think, each person's work-life balance and what they do is going to look a little bit different. But for me, it's having the support system at home to be able to do it, because it's very challenging. And like I said, probably the most, what I feel, number one challenge outside of just the time demands of college athletics in general.
What's a typical game day like in sports dietitian?
So it's going to depend on the sport, obviously, but most of the time, if whether it's away or home, the game day nutrition aspect is going to start the day before. A lot of times, a team will have an evening before competition meal, and then whether football will stay the night at a hotel, other sports will go home, but obviously, again, that's going to most likely start the day before. Day of it's going to be dependent upon tip off time or kickoff time, but you'll have a pregame meal, and then depending on if it's later in the day, you'll have breakfast or a brunch before. Then you'll have snacks set up for in the locker room. You'll have halftime routine, and then you'll have post game as well. If you happen to have a double header or something like that in a different sport, obviously you'll have something in between as well. We just try to help our director of ops, coordinate that and execute that as best as possible and take a lot of that off their hands since they have managed so many other things. But all day basically is what that game day environment will look like. And again, we just try to support however we can.
What's the typical day in the life, not game day wise, for a sports nutritionist?
It just, again, depends, whether you're in season, off season, the time of year. But, depends on when the team practices. If it's, with basketball, for example, right now, our women's team goes at 1 and our men's team goes at 2:30. So, men get post game or post practice snacks. So, we don't wrap up with them until 6:30 after everyone's eaten. Some teams offer, apps to get their post practice stuff so they can kind of go and do that on their own time when it's convenient for them. Football does stuff periodically through the week after practice. So really kind of just wraps up whenever that final team's post practice snack or additional meal is kind of wrapped up.
What's it like getting to work with the football team in the sports nutritionist side?
It depends again on the coaching staff and who's present, but again, just like we would do with any team, just try to support our strength coaches, coaching staff, and sports medicine and sports psychology staffs as best we can with managing and handling any of the nutritional needs and demands that the team requires.
What are some similarities and differences between obviously the football and basketball versus obviously, let's say, softball and soccer?
There's really not a lot of changes, or as far as what we do and the services that we provide, not a lot of differences honestly, just probably volume. Obviously, football is going to have the most number out of all of those. But very similar as far as meals provided and support provided. Soccer would probably look very, very similar to what football gets and what is provided and what Katie does with that sport. And that's my assistant that's on the ground with soccer. Softball, for example, this weekend has a scrimmage on Saturday and Sunday. So same thing, they're going to get dugout snacks before a pregame meal, and then they'll get pre-game post-game meal. So again, it's pretty similar, honestly, across the board.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know before working in sports nutritionist?
I think I thought I knew the time demands and kind of the volume of what we would do, but I really didn't. So I guess I have a better idea now of kind of what it really takes to do it the way that I feel is necessary and needed to provide the highest level of care for all of our teams and athletes. So I guess now, and then just knowing, at the end of the day that, you just got to do what you can do and just say what you can't for the next day to tackle it then, and not can't overanalyze or get too caught up in, just again, having that balance of saving it for the next day if you can't fit it all in one.
Of course, working with sports nutritionists, have you seen in your personal life, obviously you're more healthier and know obviously what you're putting in as you put stuff in athletes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, working with athletes has obviously exposed me to, being able to manage in my personal life and hopefully with my family. Absolutely. Always try to practice what you preach, for sure.
What are some of your future plans when it comes to obviously being the director of sports nutritionists?
Yeah, I want to continue to grow administratively. I obviously want to stay on the ground in some capacity with the majority of our teams, but continue to grow as staff and mentor. Again, having more people on the ground allows you to be able to do more and balance more, and take more again off one person. If there's two people right now, having four will allow us to have more balance and be able to do things more efficiently. And again, continue to provide the highest level of care as we're equipped to, as far as staffing goes. So I think continue to grow administratively and grow and serve our athletes and my staff.
How has, obviously, with this previous year of COVID, how has that impacted you? And what are some of the things that with COVID, you've changed to, obviously, for this year?
So we tried obviously the modality in which we provided. So we didn't have sit down meals as much anymore, especially if there were other teams in one area. We had all kind of grab and go systems there. Limited our athletes coming into fueling stations, try to do all us serving them versus them going into the fueling stations, trying to minimize contact times, trying to work with our sports medicine staffs on keeping everything as healthy and safe as possible while we traveled. It looks a far more normal this year than it ever has. Last year, a lot changed. We weren't supposed to eat in the buses. We weren't supposed to eat on the planes, wearing masks all the time, limiting the amount of people that could sit, at a table together. So this year, honestly, it's been better. I think we learned a lot as far as prioritizing the things that we really needed to do. So I think moving forward into this year, that was, impacted us from last year. I think carrying over and transitioning again, just prioritizing with the staffs. We still have a limited staff compared to what we did, just being able to do, prioritize what's the most important at that time and provide it, then.
What advice would you have people looking to work in college athletics on the sports nutritionist side?
You need lots of experience. So I would highly recommend, making sure that we get as much experience on the ground as possible. It is a very specialized, specific area. And so I think if you can get the most experience you can in undergrad or even in grad school, that exposes you to this area and make sure that you're a good fit for it and that you really enjoy and like it. And then, most people who are hiring will most likely require, 2 to 4 years experience. And so I think the more, again, experience and more well-rounded you can become early on, the easier it will be to transition into full-time jobs and positions.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the sports nutritionist program at?
So at Raider Fuel is our Twitter handle, and Fueling Texas Tech is our Instagram. And then you can find us on the Texas Tech website as well if you have any questions. And Texas Tech University also has an undergraduate dietetic internship and a master's program as well. So we are also unique in that we offer nutrition specific and dietetics area of focus in our institution.
That's amazing. Thank you again, Dayna McCutchin, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the Director of Sports Nutritionist for Texas Tech.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Dayna, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.